In the cracked heat of northern Namibia, Ethan, a conservation drone pilot, was just flying another survey grid when a tiny moving dot on his screen stopped his heart. It was an orphaned baby elephant, dehydrated and alone. He poured one cap of water, and the calf latched onto him like he was its last chance. Everyone would call it cute. But the moment Ethan tried to walk away, it panicked like it was dying. And that's when Ethan realized saving it wouldn't be the hard part. Letting it go would. The African sun sat high and ruthless over northern Namibia, bleaching the gravel plains to the color of old bone. Ethan Cole kept his truck in low gear, eyes flicking between the horizon and the tablet mount on his dash. Out here, maps lied and heat shimmer bent the world into mirage after mirage. Even the air tasted like rust, and the horizon looked scorched at the edges. He wasn't a ranger or a scientist with a PhD, just the project's drone survey pilot hired for steady hands and stubborn patience. He flew search grids to find what drought tried to erase, faint trails, hidden seep springs, and the slow routes elephants used when the land still remembered water. Some days, he mapped where life used to be, and where it might still hide. At the staging site, a canvas awning snapped in the wind. Solar batteries hummed beside stacked jerry cans, and a cooler held the last ice like a fragile promise. Ethan unpacked his quadcopter with practiced care, checking rotors, signal, and GPS lock until every icon settled green and steady. He shaded the tablet with his forearm, listening to the faint whine of electronics fighting the heat. He launched, and the drone climbed cleanly, its buzz swallowed by open sky. On his screen, the land flattened into patterns, cracked pans like porcelain, thorn trees like pinpricks, old riverbeds like scars. The live feed was beautiful and brutal at once, a quiet that pressed on the chest. It looked like a place that had forgotten sound, and it made his own breathing feel too big. "Cole, you seeing anything?" Ranger Maya Brooks crackled in his earpiece, calm in that way that meant she'd already braced for bad news. Ethan pressed transmit. Nothing moving, just dust and old tracks. He didn't add how the silence felt heavy, like the desert was holding its breath and watching him. Maya had grown up near these routes. She knew the breaking point came earlier every year. He swung the drone wider, skimming a rocky wash where runoff used to collect. Then a single pixel shifted against the gray, too slow for a jackal, too small for a cow. Ethan zoomed in, expecting a scavenger. The camera sharpened into small, frantic steps, and his stomach dropped before his mind caught up. The movement didn't belong out here by itself, and that wrongness crawled up Ethan's spine. It was an elephant calf, impossibly young, ears too big, legs too long, skin dulled by dust and heat. No adults nearby, no shadowing herd. The little thing lifted its trunk again and again, tasting the wind like it could pull a mother's scent out of emptiness, like hope had a smell you could follow. Its tail twitched like a metronome gone wrong, and each breath puffed dust from its cheeks. Ethan's hands stayed on the controls, but his breathing changed. He'd filmed elephants before, huge, calm giants that made trucks feel like toys. This was different. This was a question the world shouldn't ask. He pinged Maya. "I've got a calf, alone." The pause on the line lasted long enough to sting. Ethan swallowed, tasting metal. He'd seen carcasses. He hadn't seen loneliness this young. "Don't go down there," Maya said at last. "Mark the coordinate. Keep eyes on it. We'll handle." Ethan watched the calf turn in a slow circle, wobbling on knees that wanted to fold. In the monitor, its ribs showed faintly under wrinkled skin, and the searching look in its eyes felt almost personal. A clip like this would rack up 1,000,000 hearts online. Out here, it felt like a warning. A gust shoved dust across the lens. For a second, the calf vanished in a brown smear, and Ethan's pulse spiked. Then it reappeared, still there, still searching. Somewhere far off, a raven cut across the sky and vanished, leaving the frame empty again. The simple math of hunger suddenly felt loud. The calf kept testing the wind, again and again, as if refusing to accept what the sky was telling it. He lowered the drone again, just enough to confirm what he already knew. No herd, no water, no shade worth the name. His finger hovered over "Return to home." Protocol said document and withdraw. Write clean words and drive on. But withdraw sounded like a door closing on something living, and Ethan hated how easy it was to say from a safe screen. Right now. On the ground, he turned his truck toward the coordinate, tires crunching over hardened crust. Maya's voice came back, softer now. "Ethan, listen. If you intervene wrong, it imprints. If it imprints, rehab gets harder." He didn't answer. He only drove, watching dust pull him forward like a string, telling himself he was only confirming until help arrived. Ethan pulled up short of the coordinate and killed the engine, letting the silence settle. Heat rolled off the hood in visible waves. He grabbed his hat, a small field pack, and a single bottle from the cooler. No hero talk, no big plan, just a man stepping into a place that didn't forgive mistakes. The calf stood where the drone had found it, smaller up close than any screen could admit. Dust clung to its eyelashes. Its ears flared once, not in threat, more like a nervous shrug. It lifted its trunk, drew in Ethan's scent, and froze again, as if deciding whether the world was safe enough to breathe. Maya's voice stayed in Ethan's ear, steady but tight. "Keep distance. Don't touch it. Don't feed it from your hands." Ethan didn't argue. He moved, slow, half-turned, like you would around a skittish horse. The bottle felt heavy in his grip, too small for the kind of thirst he was looking at. He crouched and set the bottle down in plain view. The calf took one hesitant step, then another, legs wobbling as if they belonged to someone else. It sniffed, trunk tip trembling, and Ethan heard a soft, dry sound, more rasp than breath. The animal's ribs rose and fell like thin shutters. Ethan twisted the cap. The first slosh of water was loud in that quiet world, and the calf's ears perked sharp. Ethan poured a little into the bottle cap, then set it on the ground and backed away. The calf stared at the shining puddle like it was a trick, then leaned in and drank, frantic and careful at the same time. For a few seconds the desert had a rhythm again, sip, swallow, inhale. Ethan watched the calf's throat work and felt something unclench behind his ribs. He poured another capful, then another. It wasn't much, but it was real. Maya didn't speak. Even over radio, Ethan could feel her holding her breath. When the cap went dry, the calf lifted its trunk and reached toward Ethan, not grabbing, not begging, just searching. The trunk brushed the air, then lightly tapped Ethan's boot. It was the gentlest pressure, like a question asked with fingertips. Ethan's mouth tightened into a smile he didn't authorize. From a distance, it would have looked like a sweet little scene. A tiny elephant and a lone man in a wide hat, the kind of clip people share with captions and heart emojis. Ethan could almost hear the comments. "So cute. Look at the bond." But standing there, he saw the truth under the softness, how desperate that touch really was. Maya finally broke in, voice low. "Ethan, don't let it anchor on you." He answered without looking away. "I know." The calf stepped closer anyway, leaning its shoulder toward his shin, as if the shade of his body counted as shelter. Ethan stayed still, hands open at his sides, fighting the urge to reassure. He poured one last small capful, then tightened the bottle and slipped it back into his pack. He did not pet the calf. He did not speak baby talk. He simply shifted his weight and took a careful half-step back. The calf followed that half-step instantly, the way a child follows a parent through a doorway. Ethan tried to read the ground like Maya had taught him. Tracks, scuffs, the story of who came and went. He found prints from a larger herd, days old, pressed deep, then fading into nothing. And there were no fresh adult tracks circling back. That absence felt like a sentence. Whatever happened, the herd was gone. Over the radio, Maya asked for the coordinate again, sharper now. Ethan repeated it, then added, "It's alone. No adults close." There was a pause, and in that pause he pictured Maya's face, the hard look she wore when the job turned personal. "I'm coming," she said. "Stay put. And Ethan, don't let it follow you." Ethan glanced toward his truck, only 50 yards away. A simple distance, a simple walk. He shifted his shoulders as if to leave, just to test the line between help and harm. The calf's eyes widened, and it pressed closer, trunk skimming his leg like it was holding him in place. Cute, everyone would say. Ethan didn't feel cute at all. He stayed where he was, letting the calf breathe beside him while the sun climbed higher. He kept his body calm, his movements small, his voice quiet when he finally spoke. "Easy," he murmured, not for the animal alone, but for himself. In the far distance, a faint engine note drifted on the wind, Maya closing in. Ethan waited for Maya's truck like it was a lifeline, eyes scanning the horizon between heat shimmers. The calf stood close enough that he could feel its warm breath on his pant leg. Every time Ethan shifted, the little elephant adjusted too, as if the space between them was a rope that couldn't be slack. When Maya finally appeared as a pale shape in the dust, she slowed long before reaching them. She got out with her hands visible, posture low and calm, ranger boots sinking into soft sand. Her gaze flicked from Ethan to the calf, then back, measuring the situation the way you measure a storm. "It's already leaning on you," she said quietly. Not an accusation, more like a diagnosis. Ethan kept his voice even. "I tried to keep distance." Maya nodded once. "We can still manage it. But you have to do one thing right now." She looked past him, toward the empty plain. "You have to walk away." The words landed heavy. Ethan swallowed and turned his head slightly, so he didn't stare straight into the calf's eyes. Maya moved to his side, not touching him, but close enough to share the burden of the moment. "Just 10 yards," she said. "Slow. No sudden moves. We need to see how it reacts." Ethan took a breath and shifted his weight toward the truck. The calf's ears lifted. Immediately, sharp as flags in a wind. Ethan made his first step, soft, deliberate. The calf froze. For half a beat, it looked almost peaceful, like the world had paused to decide what came next. Then the calf made a thin sound, high and strained, and the calm cracked. It lurched forward, stumbling, legs folding and catching, dust puffing up around its knees. The little elephant rushed after Ethan with the frantic urgency of something that believed stopping was the same as dying. Maya lifted her hand, palm out, a silent signal to halt. Ethan stopped instantly, heart slamming. The calf closed the gap and pressed its forehead into Ethan's thigh, trembling. Its trunk wrapped briefly around his calf muscle. Not tight, just clinging. Cute, a stranger would have said. Up close, it looked like panic wearing a soft face. Ethan knelt without thinking, then forced himself to pause before his hands reached out. Maya's voice cut through his instinct, gentle but firm. "Don't reward it. With touch. Not yet. Let it settle." Ethan kept his palms on his own knees, breathing slow, letting the calf feel his presence without feeding the attachment. The calf's eyes were wide and glassy, and its breathing came fast through its trunk. It tested Ethan's scent again, then touched the ground, then touched Ethan's boot, like it was checking whether reality still held. Maya watched every movement, jaw tight. "That's separation distress," she murmured. "It's not bonding, it's survival." A wind gust swept grit across their faces, and the calf flinched hard. Ethan glanced up, and for a moment the entire plain felt exposed, too open to trust. He stood slowly, then took one step back, not away. The calf stepped with him in perfect sync, like a shadow that had learned fear. Maya crouched and studied the sand near a cluster of rocks. Her fingers traced a line, then stopped. "Ethan," she said, voice dropping, "look at this." In the dust were two parallel centre grooves and a set of narrow tread marks, fresher than the old herd prints. Lightweight tires, recent, cutting across the wash at an angle. Ethan's stomach tightened. "Bikes?" he asked. Maya nodded once. "Could be, or a small vehicle." She looked toward the horizon again, eyes narrowing. "Either way, it means people have been here since yesterday, and they weren't hauling water." Her gaze slid to the calf. A crying calf is a beacon. The calf nudged Ethan's leg again, softer now, but still urgent, and Ethan felt a cold thought settle in. If someone was out here laying snares, a lone calf wasn't just vulnerable, it was valuable. Maya straightened, making a decision with her whole body. We're moving, now. Quietly. Ethan glanced at the truck, then down at the calf that had already decided he was the safest thing in a broken world. He tried another small step, not even a full stride. The calf matched him instantly, tighter than before. Maya exhaled. Through her nose, a hard little breath. Everyone thinks this part is cute, she said, until you realize you can't walk away. They started toward the truck at a slow, careful pace. Ethan kept his shoulders loose and his steps measured, like he was carrying something fragile in both hands. The calf followed a half step behind, trunk brushing the back of his knee, as if it was afraid the space between them could open and swallow it whole. In the distance the wind carried a faint mechanical hum, too steady to be insects, too sharp to be birds, and Maya's eyes lifted, alert. Maya didn't run. She just moved with purpose, the kind that kept panic from spreading. She opened Ethan's passenger door without slamming it, then pointed him around the front of the truck. "Keep it on your left," she whispered. "Let it see you the whole time, no surprises." Ethan nodded, throat tight. The calf followed him like a quiet magnet, ears twitching at every new sound. When Ethan reached the hood, he paused, and the calf paused too, pressing its shoulder into his shin as if to borrow his balance. Behind them, the desert stayed wide and empty, but the faint hum in the wind refused to disappear. Maya climbed into the driver's seat and turned the key only halfway. No ignition yet, just power. The radio lit. She listened, eyes narrowed, then looked at Ethan again. "We're not driving straight out," she mouthed. "We're cutting behind the acacias, less visible." Ethan glanced toward the sparse trees and felt how small, less visible, really was out here. He tried to guide the calf closer to the truck, hoping it would tuck into the shade of the door. The calf hesitated at the dark shape of metal, then stepped forward, trunk exploring the tire, the step rail, the smell of oil and dust. Its curiosity was gentle, almost childlike, until another gust rattled the brush and it flinched back into Ethan's leg. Maya cracked her window. "Ethan, you can't put it inside." "Too dangerous," she said. "If it panics, it'll hurt itself." She glanced at the calf's thin frame. "We walk it to my water cache. 2 miles. That's it." Ethan heard the unspoken part. 2 miles was still a lifetime for something that small. They started moving, Ethan in front, Maya a few paces back, rifle slung but not raised. The calf stayed tight to Ethan's side, trunk brushing his knee with every third step like a nervous habit. Ethan kept his eyes on the ground, watching for stones it could trip on, watching for any line that didn't belong in nature. The hum returned, closer now, then faded, like a motor changing direction. Maya raised 2 fingers, signaling stop. All 3 froze. Ethan could hear the calf's breathing, fast and dry, and his own pulse knocking in his ears. Somewhere beyond the low rise, something mechanical moved, and then went quiet again. Maya leaned toward Ethan, barely moving her lips. "If they're out here," she said, "they're not sightseeing." Her eyes slid to the calf. "And that little one. It's a headline for the wrong people." Ethan stared at the calf's dusty forehead and felt the word cute turn sour in his mouth. They kept to the acacia line, using the thin shade like it mattered. Thorns snagged Ethan's sleeve. The calf stumbled once, caught itself, and pressed harder into Ethan's leg, as if ashamed. Ethan slowed his pace without thinking, matching the calf's rhythm, until its steps steadied, and the panic in its eyes dulled to watchfulness. A new sound cut through, tire grit on rock. Maya crouched instantly, and pulled Ethan down behind a low mound with a firm hand to his sleeve. Ethan sank, heart racing, and the calf sank too, folding its legs awkwardly, trunk curling close. It stayed silent, as if it understood silence was survival. Across the wash, a figure flashed between rocks, too far for details, but the movement was human, quick and practiced. Then, another. No voices carried, No laughter, no casual talk, just shapes, scanning. Maya's face tightened. She didn't reach for her radio. She didn't want a single beep in the open air. The calf trembled against Ethan's hip, and Ethan fought the urge to wrap an arm around it. He kept his hands where the calf could see them, open and still. The calf's trunk found his wrist anyway, a light touch that felt like a plea in a language older than words. Ethan's eyes burned, but he didn't blink. Minutes passed like hours. The figures moved on, their silhouettes dissolving into heat haze. Maya finally exhaled, slow and controlled, and gestured forward. "We keep moving," she whispered. "No stops now unless it drops." Ethan swallowed, nodded, and rose carefully, letting the calf rise with him. They reached a shallow dip, where Maya had buried a small emergency cache weeks ago, 2 sealed jugs and a folded tarp wrapped in plastic. She dug fast, hands steady, and pulled them free. The calf's ears lifted at the scent of water before the cap even turned, and Ethan felt his own body loosen with relief. A low engine note rolled again on the wind, distant but real. Maya stiffened, then looked at Ethan with a hard clarity. "We need backup," she said, "and we need transport. I'm calling Noah." Ethan frowned. "Noah?" Maya nodded. "Supply driver. He owes me favors, and he's got a bigger rig." Ethan fed the calf small sips from a cup, watching it drink without choking, watching the frantic edge soften into something like trust. Maya stepped aside to make the call, voice kept low, coded. Ethan heard only fragments. "Coordinate, now. Don't come loud." The calf pressed its head to Ethan's thigh again, steady this time. When Maya returned, her expression was grim but focused. "Noah's 20 minutes out," she said. "He'll meet us at the old service track. We're getting this calf out before those shadows loop back." Ethan looked down at the small body leaning into him, and he understood the next part without anyone saying it. This wasn't a rescue yet. It was an escape, and every step Ethan took, the calf would take too, because stopping, even for a second, meant being alone again. Noah's rig showed up as a slow-moving shape on the service track, bigger than it had any right to be in a place this empty. He didn't blow the horn. He didn't even slam the door when he climbed down. He just took one look at the calf glued to Ethan's leg and let out a breath, like he'd been holding it for years. "Okay," Noah said softly, like loud words might crack the moment. "How do we do this?" Maya gave him a quick rundown. No sudden movements, no forcing, no noise. Ethan kept his body angled so the calf could see him, and he moved one step at a time toward the shade of the truck, letting the little one decide each inch. The calf tested Noah's scent and backed into Ethan as if the new man was a cliff edge. Noah stayed still, hands open, eyes lowered. "Hey, little friend," he murmured. "I'm not taking him from you." Ethan felt his throat tighten at that sentence, because it sounded too close to the truth he didn't want to name. They made a slow procession back toward the staging site, Noah driving wide and careful, Maya scouting ahead, Ethan walking with the calf in the thin slice of evening light. The desert cooled by degrees, trading heat for a brittle kind of quiet. Each time Ethan paused, the calf leaned into him, as if his shadow was the only shelter that counted. By the time the tents came into view, the sky had started to bruise purple at the edges. Solar batteries blinked their tiny LEDs like fireflies trapped in plastic. Noah parked without cutting across the open flat, keeping the rig tucked near acacias. Maya set a tarp low for shade and windbreak, turning the camp into a small, careful island. Ethan mixed an electrolyte packet into water, measuring, like the stakes were medical, not just emotional. He poured a small amount into a wide lid and slid it forward. The calf drank, slower now, less frantic, as if the body was finally realizing it might get another sip tomorrow. Ethan watched its shoulders settle and felt his own spine unknot. Noah crouched a few yards away, pulling jerky from his pocket, then thinking better of it. "You ever see one this young alone?" he asked Maya. Maya shook her head once. "Not, and still walking." She didn't say what the odds were. She didn't have to. The calf's thin frame said it out loud. When night fully fell, the wind dropped, and the stars came out sharp as nails. The calf wandered the edge of the tarp, then circled back to Ethan like a compass finding north. It pressed against his shin and lowered itself with an awkward sigh, folding into the sand. Ethan sat a short distance away, careful not to invite more closeness. From the outside, it would have looked like something sweet, man, and baby elephant sharing a quiet night under an African sky. Noah couldn't help himself. He lifted his phone and captured a few seconds, the calf's trunk gently tapping Ethan's boot, Ethan's stillness, the hush around them. "Just for the team," Noah whispered, "to show we found it." Maya shot him a look that could cut rope. "Noah," she said, low and sharp. "No posting, no tags, no location." Noah raised both hands in surrender. "I'm not stupid," he said. "Just, people should know." Maya's face didn't soften. "The wrong people already know enough. Out here, attention is a scent." Later, when the camp generator clicked on for a minute to charge the satellite unit, Noah's phone buzzed with messages. The clip had traveled anyway, shared in a private group thread, then forwarded again. A dozen replies came back with the same word: adorable, heart emojis, jokes about Ethan becoming a dad. Ethan stared at the glowing, unfamiliar sound. It didn't include the way it flinched at every unfamiliar sound. It didn't include the tire tracks Maya had found, or the figures moving quiet through the wash. Cute was what people called something when they were safe enough to laugh. Ethan didn't feel safe enough to laugh. Maya checked the perimeter twice, flashlight covered with a red filter. When she returned, her voice was all business. "We can't stay here long," she told Ethan. "If those men circle back and hear it, they'll come. And if they see your truck, they'll know we're close." She looked at the calf sleeping near Ethan. "You're not the only one it's drawn to." Ethan glanced at the calf's ear flicking in sleep, one ear still turned toward him, like it was listening for his heartbeat. "Rescue unit?" he asked. Maya nodded. "I've got a call out. Dr. Hayes is coordinating, but it won't be immediate." She paused, then added, "And until they arrive, you have to be careful how you exist around it." Noah tried to lighten the mood with a soft joke about camp mascot, but his voice trailed off when the calf stirred and reached blindly with its trunk, searching the air. Ethan didn't touch it. He didn't speak. He only shifted slightly so his silhouette stayed in the calf's line of sight. The calf settled again, breathing evening cool air like it was learning peace. The night deepened, and the camp fell into the kind of quiet that amplifies every tiny sound. Somewhere far off, a motor coughed and faded. Maya's head lifted instantly, eyes narrowing into the dark. Ethan felt the calm he'd borrowed from the stars start to slip away. He understood then, the sweetest-looking bond can turn into a beacon. And in that thin space between rescue and risk, Ethan sat awake longer than he meant to, listening to the calf's soft breaths and the desert's long silence. Everyone would have called it cute. Ethan knew better now. Cute was just the beginning of the story, right before the part where walking away becomes the hardest thing a man can do. Morning came pale and sharp, the kind that made every shadow look like a cut in the sand. Ethan hadn't slept much. He sat with coffee, gone cold, listening to the calf shuffle under the tarp, its trunk sweeping the ground until it found the edge of his boot. It exhaled, calm for a second, as if calm was something Ethan could lend. Maya was already on the satellite unit, voice low, shoulders tense. Noah checked the rigs in silence, moving slower than usual. The calf watched all of it with a solemn focus that didn't belong to something so young. Each time Ethan stood, it stood too. Each time he turned, it adjusted, keeping him centered like the sun. A dust plume appeared on the service track before the vehicle did. Then the rescue truck rolled in, steady and purposeful, with medical cases strapped down and a canvas canopy flapping. A woman climbed out first, Dr. Lauren Hayes, hair tied back, eyes scanning the scene the way a storm spotter reads clouds. She didn't smile. She assessed. She approached at an angle, slow and quiet, and stopped a respectful distance away. "How long since it drank?" she asked. Maya answered in clipped facts. Ethan stayed still, letting the calf decide whether this new presence was threat or help. The calf tucked closer, trunk curling against Ethan's leg. Dr. Hayes saw it, and her face tightened, not in anger, in worry. She knelt, hands open, and spoke like someone used to frightened animals and frightened humans. "We can save it," she said, "but we need to do it carefully. This attachment can turn into refusal. Refusal to eat, refusal to bond with other elephants. If it thinks you're the only safe thing, it won't accept the next safe thing." Ethan felt the words land like weight. The team began setting up a soft-sided transport crate and a harness designed for a calf. They moved with practiced calm, but the calf felt the change in the air. It shifted, ears flaring, eyes locked on Ethan. Noah tried to distract it with a slow hand movement, but the calf ignored him. It wasn't curious now. It was watching for loss. Dr. Hayes asked Ethan to step back 3 yards, just 3. Ethan nodded and tried, turning his body sideways so he didn't look like he was leaving. The calf's breathing quickened immediately. It took 1 step after him, then another, then bumped its forehead into his thigh like it was pushing him back into place. The cute mask slipped again. "Okay," Dr. Hayes murmured, "changing plans in real time. We'll taper. We'll work around the bond, not against it." She signaled her handler to slow everything down. Maya's jaw clenched with frustration, not at Ethan, at the situation. "Out here, you didn't get perfect conditions. You got whatever the land allowed." Then, Ethan's tablet buzzed. Once, twice, until the vibration felt like a heartbeat he couldn't ignore. A message from Project Command, urgent redeploy. A herd was moving toward an old minefield zone farther south, confused by dried riverbeds and broken fencing. They needed aerial eyes now, not later. "If they enter the corridor," the text said, "we lose them." Ethan stared at the screen until the words blurred. Hundreds of elephants, a whole family line, and here, a single calf pressing into his leg like a promise. His mouth went dry. The desert suddenly felt smaller, as if it had narrowed into a hallway with 2 doors and no third option. Maya saw his face and stepped closer. "What is it?" she asked. He showed her the message. She read it once, then again, like she was hoping the letters would rearrange themselves. "They're ordering you out," she said quietly. Ethan nodded, shame and anger twisting together. Noah looked up from the medical cases, eyes wide. "You can't leave now," he said. "Not when it's like this." Ethan didn't answer, because he didn't know which now mattered more. Dr. Hayes listened without interrupting, then spoke with a blunt kindness that felt like a scalpel. "You're the anchor," she told Ethan. "Right now, you're helping it survive. But you're also the reason this is so hard. If you stay too close, you deepen the imprint. If you leave too fast, you fracture it." She paused. "Sometimes the right move feels like betrayal." The handler eased the crate closer. The calf stiffened and swung its trunk, searching Ethan's scent like it was searching the only language it trusted. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to kneel, to whisper, to make the world gentle again. Instead, he forced his hands to remain at his sides, fingers flexing against his jeans. The team needed his stillness more than his comfort. Maya stepped aside with him, out of the calf's direct line for a moment, and lowered her voice. "Those tire tracks," she said, "and that clip Noah sent, it's making rounds. I'm getting chatter. If the wrong crew hears there's a calf and a camp, they'll come sniffing." Her eyes were hard. "We can't give them time." Ethan looked back at the calf, dusty and trembling, and felt the story tightening like a knot. Everyone would see a sweet rescue. Nobody would see the math. Time, distance, hunger, fear. He tucked the tablet away and took one slow breath, as if he could store oxygen for what came next. The sun climbed, the wind held its heat, and the rescue team waited for Ethan to choose a direction. The handlers moved like they were handling glass, inching the soft crate closer without making it a challenge. Dr. Hayes kept her voice low, giving simple cues, the kind that didn't spike fear. Ethan stood where she placed him, half turned, trying to look present, without looking like a promise he couldn't keep. The calf sensed the shift. Anyway, its ears lifted, then flattened, then lifted again. It took a step toward Ethan, trunk stretching, tasting the air like it could pull reassurance out of heat. Noah hovered near the medical cases, useless hands clenched and unclenched. Maya scanned the horizon every few seconds, watching for dust trails that meant trouble. "Ethan," Dr. Hayes said gently, "I need you farther back." He nodded, and his boots slid through sand with a sound that felt too loud. The calf followed instantly. Not playful, not curious. It followed the way a person follows a life raft in dark water. The cute moment was gone. This was need. Maya's radio crackled once, an encrypted chirp from a nearby patrol. She listened, then her face tightened. "Movement 2 kilometers east," she said under her breath. Could be nothing. Could be them circling. Noah's eyes flicked toward the open plain. Ethan felt the ground under his feet turn thin, like ice. The team tried a new angle. A handler offered the calf a cloth soaked in electrolyte, letting it drink while standing near the crate. The calf drank, but kept one eye on Ethan the whole time, as if the liquid mattered less than the distance. The handler eased the crate door open. The calf froze and leaned back into Ethan's leg. Dr. Hayes stepped to Ethan, voice steady but urgent. "If it keeps anchoring on you, it won't step in. If it won't step in, we're stuck. If we're stuck, we risk everything. Its life, your safety, the whole operation." She held his gaze. "I'm not asking you to be cold. I'm asking you to be brave." Ethan's tablet buzzed again inside his pack, a reminder that hundreds of elephants were drifting toward a danger zone far away. 2 crises pulling him in opposite directions, both real, both unforgiving. He looked at the calf's dusty forehead and understood the cruel timing. The first real test of love was going to look like leaving. He knelt slowly, careful, keeping his hands close to his body. The calf reached out and brushed his shoulder with its trunk, soft as a sigh. Ethan didn't pet it. He didn't turn it into a reward. He just leaned in, close enough for it to feel his breath, and spoke in a voice meant for storms and children alike. "You're safe," he whispered. "You're going to be safe." The handler began guiding the calf, inch by inch, toward the crate. The calf resisted, not with force, but with heartbreak, turning its head back toward Ethan, making a thin, pleading sound that scraped the air raw. The sound carried across the flats like a flare. Maya's head snapped up. "We don't have time," she said. Ethan stood. He took one step back, then another, forcing his body to move like it didn't matter. The calf lurched toward him, panic rising, and the handler held firm, gentle, but unyielding. The calf trumpeted, small, cracked, desperate eyes wide, searching Ethan's face for the rule it had learned: stay close or be alone. For a second, Ethan almost broke. He almost stepped forward and ended the crying with his own hands. Consequences be damned. But Dr. Hayes's warning echoed in his chest. Saving it wasn't keeping it. Saving it was getting it to accept a world beyond him. He held his ground, jaw clenched, eyes wet, and let the hard moment do its work. The calf finally stepped into the crate, not smoothly, but because there was nowhere else to put its fear. The door closed with a soft latch that sounded louder than thunder. Inside, the calf pressed against the mesh, trunk reaching out, still looking for Ethan, like the world had removed its only landmark. Noah turned away, wiping his face fast. Maya touched Ethan's sleeve. A brief contact, human to human. "You did what had to be done," she said. Ethan couldn't answer. His throat was locked. The rescue truck began to roll, slow at first, then steady, carrying the calf toward a better chance, and a different kind of loneliness. Ethan watched until the dust swallowed the taillights. The camp felt suddenly too clean, too empty, like someone had removed the only living thing that made it real. His tablet chimed again, the herd, the mine corridor, the urgent grid. Ethan picked up the controller case with hands that didn't feel like his. Before he climbed into Noah's rig, Ethan looked once more at the track the rescue truck had carved into the sand. The calf's cries had faded, leaving only wind and the faint hum of electronics warming up. In that quiet, Ethan understood the title in his bones. Everyone thought it was cute, until he tried to walk away. Weeks later, the coast felt like another planet. Cool air, salt on the wind, gulls arguing over fish. Ethan flew his drone over wetlands and dunes, tracing lines that looked peaceful from above. But his mind kept snapping back to the desert, to dust and a small trunk reaching through mesh. Even here, silence still sounded like that moment. He tried to work like normal. He logged flight paths, tagged heat signatures, filed reports that read clean and professional. Yet every time he powered on a battery, he remembered a crate door clicking shut. At night, he'd wake to phantom sounds, soft trumpets that weren't there, then lie still, ashamed of how much he missed something he'd known for 2 days. Maya checked in once, brief and practical. The calf had made it to the facility. Security had been tightened, after rumors of poachers sniffing around the area. Noah texted a single line. "You did right." Ethan stared at it for a long time, wishing right felt less like a bruise. Then Dr. Hayes called. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. "He's stable," she said. "Hydrated, no infection." Ethan exhaled, relief flooding in, until she added, "But he's refusing formula. He stands apart, won't engage. We're worried he's shutting down." Ethan closed his eyes. The desert came back in full color. Dr. Hayes paused, as if choosing words carefully. "We named him Atlas," she said, "because he's caring too much for something so young." Ethan felt that name land in his chest like a stone. Atlas. A little one holding up a world that had already collapsed once. Ethan didn't know what to say, so he said the only honest thing. "Is it my fault?" "It's not that simple," Dr. Hayes replied. "Attachment saved him out there. But now it's a barrier. He's waiting for you." The line went quiet for a beat. Then she continued, softer. "I don't usually ask this, but your presence might restart him. Not to keep him with you, to help him step away from you." Ethan requested leave the same day, signing papers with hands that shook more than he wanted to admit. His supervisor frowned, then nodded. Everyone in conservation had a story that explained their scars. Maya offered to meet him at the airstrip. Noah drove him the last miles to the facility, talking about weather and fuel, like small talk could pad the truth. The rehabilitation center sat behind gates and thorn fencing, tucked into acacia shade. It didn't feel like a zoo. It felt like a hospital for hearts. Dr. Hayes met Ethan at the office, her face tired but steady. "Rules," she said immediately. "You'll see him, but no constant contact. We're going to use you like a bridge, not a home." Atlas was bigger than Ethan expected, still young, but no longer the impossibly tiny calf from the wash. His skin looked healthier, his eyes clearer, yet his posture carried a loneliness that didn't match his improved body. Other orphans clustered in small groups, touching and rumbling softly. Atlas stood just off to the side, as if he didn't trust the idea of belonging. The moment Atlas caught Ethan's scent, his whole body changed. His ears lifted, his head came up, and he moved forward fast, too fast for the handler's comfort. Ethan stopped where Dr. Hayes signaled, heart hammering. Atlas reached out, trunk extended, and pressed his forehead into Ethan's open palm like he'd been holding that memory in his bones. For a heartbeat, it was everything people wanted to see. Reunion, love, a happy ending. But Atlas made a low sound that wasn't joy alone. It had a rough edge, something like accusation. Ethan felt it as clearly as language. "Where did you go?" He swallowed hard and kept his hands still, letting Atlas feel him without letting the moment take over. Dr. Hayes guided the next steps like a conductor. A calm, older female, a nanny elephant named Mosi, approached with slow confidence and gentle rumbles. Atlas flicked his gaze between Ethan and Mosi, torn. Ethan took one deliberate step back, then another, forcing the space to widen without breaking the thread completely. Atlas hesitated, trunk reaching after Ethan's retreating warmth. Then Mosi touched Atlas' cheek with her trunk, steady and maternal, offering the kind of comfort Ethan could never truly provide. Atlas leaned into her for half a second, then looked back at Ethan again. Ethan didn't step forward. His hands stayed at his sides, his face soft but firm. Days passed in careful increments. Ethan would arrive, Atlas would light up, and then Ethan would fade into the background while Mosey and the other orphans pulled Atlas into their orbit. It hurt in a quiet way, like watching a door close that you'd promised to keep open. But each time Atlas chose another elephant, even briefly, Dr. Hayes's eyes warmed with hope. The final day came out in the reserve, where the semi-wild herd moved like a slow river through grass and thorn. Atlas walked with the group now, not fully fearless, but no longer alone. As the herd began to drift beyond the fence line, Atlas paused at the edge and turned his head back. His eyes found Ethan, and for a long moment the world held still. Ethan didn't call him. He didn't raise a hand like a signal to return. He simply nodded once, the smallest permission a man can give. Atlas lingered, then turned and followed the herd into the trees, his shape blending into gold light and moving shadows. The quiet that followed wasn't empty this time. It was earned. Before you go, be honest with me. If you were Ethan, would you have stayed? Or would you have walked away so Atlas could be free? Comment 0 if you'd stay, or 1 if you'd walk away. And if this story hit you anywhere in the heart, tap subscribe, because the next one is even harder and even more unforgettable.